What's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. New video. So, people have been asking me, when are you going to get back to some of the prison stuff? And, I will get back to the original content. I will bounce around. This channel is almost 7 years old. And there has to be new stuff. New things have to be tried in order to stay relevant in such a competitive marketplace, competitive environment. But I never want to forget what got me here. And I want to make sure that the people that have been rocking with me for these 7 years are still satisfied with the product they're getting. Today, I'm going to talk about a story, and it is a prison story. And let's just get to it. So I remember hearing a name, and I'm going to say the name. I'm not going to say where he's from. I remember hearing the name Baton, right? And somebody had just happened to tell me a story about being in old Folsom, and we're talking about, homies having disagreements. And he told me, he said, there was this Baton in old Folsom with us. And he said, and him and his celly didn't get along. They didn't like each other. And they were always getting into it. And so the homie stepped in and separated them, right? Moved them, to one of them to a different cell in order to alleviate the bullshit. But they would still bump heads. They really disliked each other, right? And as far as like with the Southerners, that's what'll happen. If there's an issue in the cell because of the no hands policy, you can't just have people, that's how you avoid bullying and rape and all that, right? You don't allow anybody to put their hands on their cellies. So they'll usually step in and they're, okay, you guys figure out who's staying and who's going, and we'll find a different cell for whoever's going. All right, hey, Holmes, this guy, or he's going to move out. All right, Holmes, either they're going to find their own celly or we'll find one for them, right? Just depends. If they continue to push the issue, which is what Baton and this guy did, then it goes to the next level because nobody wants to be anybody's babysitter, right? So they kept on. And so it was, other people had to step in and tell them, hey, since you vatos can't figure out how to coexist here, why don't you guys go ahead and just strap up and deal with it? Because nobody else has time for this bullshit. This is kid shit. It's petty. They say, yeah, we're down. They both agreed to get knives, meet up on the yard, and get down. They did that. They're right there on the yard, just stabbing the shit out of each other, trying to kill each other over who knows what. We do know it's over ego, over pride, stupidity, hatred, anger. We know those things are involved, but what was the real issue? I never found out. I don't know. So they both wind up going to the hospital. I believe they both lived. They were both fucked up. I want to say one of them got shot. I know they got shot at. I want to say one of them got shot by the Hudas because it wouldn't stop. But anyways, they go, to the hospitals and then they go their separate ways. They're go to the shoe and then they went their separate ways. They are forever going to be on each other's enemy list because of that, right? And so several years later, Calipatria opens up. Now, anybody who knows when Calipatria State Prison here in California opened up, that place was a complete war zone. The war between the Southerners and the blacks went off. It went on for years. It went off. It was on every facility. They had 4 facilities, A, B, C, D, and it went off. Well, D facility stopped beefing. Back then, during that era, the way things were ran. You know, the legends weren't on the yards. They were all slammed down in Pelican Bay, thousands of miles away. And they had those that they would assign to represent them, to enforce the rules, make sure everything is running to par. And in D facility, it happened to be Baton, the same guy that was in Old Folsom. And back then, the way things were ran was under the llavero system. The llavero was, you would get one guy who he had the keys to the whole yard as far as his faction, as far as the Southerners. You had one guy. He would put together a mesa. Basically, his bloqueros would, you know, the guys he would assign to look out for each block, he would talk to them. But everything was done through him. There was no, hey, Holmes, let's take a vote. He would listen to his advisors, those that he chose to advise him. He would listen to them, but at the end of the day, every call was his. The glory and the retribution would be on him, right? If it was a good call, cool, great, you're shining. If it was a bad call, they're coming for you. Somebody's going to knock you down and the next guy gets up in place. So Baton had D facility. A, B, and C facilities were all at war. Southerners and blacks were all at war. But D facility was up and programming. Baton became a tyrant like a lot of people did under the llavero system. Unfortunately, there were those that would become tyrants and forget they're just a camarada. They, in their minds, somehow thought they had become gods. Anybody that knows what I'm talking about when I use that term. Baton had become a tyrant. I wasn't there with them, but the story of Baton went around. Baton had become such a tyrant that he had designated certain weights in the weight pile as his. Nobody uses them unless he allows it. There was a bench in the weight pile that he had designated as his. Nobody uses it unless he tells them they can. Baton had some size, big dude, right? But there were a lot of camaradas that were there that were not feeling his tyrannical ways, his ego. And so as things will be, people began to talk amongst each other. Those who were connected as well as he was started talking. Started building the case against the tyrant, Baton. The fact that the other 3 yards were at war and that yard wasn't, there were camaradas that felt embarrassed. Like, how in the hell are we out here programming and they're not? I told a portion of this story in another video a few years ago, so I'm not going to get into the details of it. But the Southerners were hungry to fight. Like I said, they were embarrassed that they were the only yard programming. They felt it was horrible. It was a horrible look. And a lot of guys were concerned that, hey, if I go somewhere else, what are they going to say? How the fuck were you vatos programming and all the camaradas were fucking at war, Holmes? What kind of shit is that? It could lead to some headaches for people. People were getting at Baton, hey, Holmes, this don't feel right. This don't look right. And he's like, hey, don't worry about it. We're making feria. Feria is going where it's supposed to go. That's more important. You can't really argue with that. But it doesn't take away what people were feeling and what they wanted to do. Baton wasn't going to budge. He felt he had communication, an understanding with the black groups. Everybody was making money. So things were going to continue the way they were, right? However, prison being what prison is, a blood landed on the yard. A blood that had been we'll say green lighted. He hits the yard. People there that were not part of Baton's inner circle recognized the dude, approached Baton and said, hey, that vato right there can't be here. Run his name. So hopefully you guys can't hear the landscapers. They're doing their job. Hopefully it's not interfering with this too much. But anyways, wow, that's loud. I don't know if you can hear it. But anyways, Baton finds out it's legit. There's an issue with that blood when it comes to the Southerners. The camaradas get at Baton and they tell him, hey, don't get at them. Don't get at the Bloods. This thing has to be handled. I don't like to get in all the inner workings, but the way things go, if somebody comes and there's a green light on them, no matter who they are, if it's your own faction with the Southerners, if it's another Southerner, if it's a white, if it's a black, it's a Northern, whatever it is, if there's a green light on him and he leaves any way other than holes punched in him, it is a very, very bad reflection on the leadership in that spot. So the camaradas were telling Baton, don't get at them vatos, eh? We know what we got to do. So a guy that was a friend of mine was there at the time, and he was, let's say, part of the coalition that was against Baton, that was working to dethrone Baton. So when he was aware, like, oh, that Bato's there, feed, man. So he started sending word into the other blocks, actually going into blocks that he could and telling all the homies, gear up. It's time. It's going down. Baton's paying attention. See, because Calipatria is a 270 yard, one of the most vicious yards in California, but it's a 270 yard. On a 270 yard, when you're on the yard, you can see every building. When you're on a 180 yard, there's 4 buildings on one side, big concrete wall, and then there's 4 buildings on the other side. You can't see what's going on the small side, only the yard side when you're on the yard. So Baton being on the yard, he's seen certain camaradas going into certain buildings. So he goes in. Hey, what does so-and-so want? Oh, they gave us the word, homie, that it's going down. He was like, Charlie, ain't nothing going down. There's a miscommunication. I'll deal with it. Baton takes it upon himself, makes his decision, and goes and gets at the mouthpiece of the Bloods. Who knows what the actual conversation was, but I can assume it was something along the lines of, look, homie, I need to get at you. You know, one of your people came. He's got an issue with the homies. Everything here has been smooth for a long time. We're getting our money. We're not fucking with this stuff that's going on in these other yards. Why don't you guys just get rid of them? It saves us having to get into a conflict. It's going to be, he had to have said something along those lines, right? And the Blood told him, don't even trip. Something along those lines. We'll take care of it. Something along those lines. The very next day, the Bloods moved on 6 Southerners that were walking the track. A bunch of people got shot. That the 6 responded, and a lot of people wound up getting stabbed in that skirmish right there. As I said, when you make the right calls, you get all the glory. When you make the wrong one, you get all the punishment. That yard went. Boom. War. Full-scale war. It's now on par with the other 3 yards. That facility has been lost to warfare. No money getting made no more. Now it's business. Everybody's going at it. So I get out of the shoe in 1997. I'm in Pelican Bay. I'm beef facility. A camarada of mine is there, and we're chopping it up. He's like, hey, let's go play horseshoes, homie. Me and you against these two vatos over there. There was two vatos shooting horseshoes just by themselves, right? Homies. So we go over there and he's like, hey, can we play against you guys? Yeah, let's go, homie. So this big, fat, nasty dude walks to the pit that I'm at, right? And we're going to go shoot horseshoes, right? And I said, hey, homie, what's your name? And he was a fat dude, looked all sloppy, man. And I was like, hey, what's your name? And he introduces himself. He said, my name's Jesse. I said, all right, Holmes. Mucho gusto. So we're shooting horseshoes, not really talking. They're over there talking. They know each other. I don't know. I just barely got out of the shoe, right? And there was a dude on the fence to my right, and he was talking to somebody. And then he calls Jesse. The guy that introduced himself is Jesse. He calls him. He says, hey, Baton, come here, homie. And I remember I was looking straight ahead. And when I heard the name, I already knew about Baton. I had already been told the story. And in my head, I was like, holy shit. The fuck is he doing here? And as I said, he was a big dude. Now he's sloppy. He was fat. He looked like a J-Cat. And when he walked away, I made sure to glance over because I wanted to know who's this dude's friend. Because I know Baton has an issue coming. But I have to be careful in asking, right? Keep in mind, when I had got out of the shoe that time, I was already endorsed for transfer to another prison. So I didn't know how long I was going to be there. Long story short, Baton's luck ran out. That vato that called him to the fence, that was his own homeboy from his barrio. If I remember right. I know they were from the same city. I just don't want to say what the city is. Apparently, right after we transferred out, our bus transferred out, Baton got handled. In prison, it took a long time to get to him because, he went to the shoe and was bouncing around and whatever. But he had been getting hit everywhere he went. And kept going out there. And that's why he was all fat and sloppy. That's the story of Baton. Prison, it when you have an issue coming, doesn't matter how long it takes, they get you. You had a dude that obviously had balls to agree to meet up, go at it with somebody else with a knife, knowing he's trying to kill the dude that's going to be trying to kill him. They squared up. Boom. Steel to steel. He had the blessings to be in a position of leadership and became a tyrant. And in the end, became a pincushion. That's my video for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Everybody, please be safe, be smart, and tell the ones you love that you love them. I'm out of here.